Hey everybody, so I'm going to take a little time in this video to go over the song that you guys were asked to look at in the week one discussion. Bring it up here. Remember that song was Wanted, Dead or Alive, written by John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora, performed by the band Bon Jovi, right? So I'd asked you to look at the lyrics, and then in the discussion prompt, you were asked to explain what you thought was going on in the song, what you thought the song was about, referring to, a few specific elements of the song that made you think that, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the song and we're going to learn what the song is truly about and which parts of the song sort of show us that. We'll start at the beginning. I will say right away, just in case you're wondering and you really want to know, what the song is about is explaining how this speaker feels as a famous musician on the road. So that's what it's actually about. But let's go through the song and figure out how we know that's what it's about. So we start off, it's all the same, only the names will change. What's all the same? What names will change? Names of people, names of places. So the names change, but it doesn't matter. It's pretty much still all the same. Every day it seems we're wasting away. Another place where the faces are so cold. I drive all night just to get back home. So wherever the speaker is in the beginning, it doesn't appear to be a very good place, or at least not a place that makes them happy. It's all the same and only the names change. So either, whatever's happening every day seems to be the same. Certain elements do change, but it's still all the same. Seems we're wasting away. That's not good. Another place where the faces are so cold. So not warm, welcoming, loving faces. And in fact, the feeling is so dreadful that the speaker would drive all night just to get back home. That's how bad they don't want to be where they currently are. And then we get to the chorus right away. I'm a cowboy. On a steel horse I ride. I'm wanted, dead or alive. Wanted, dead or alive. Okay, so he's a cowboy. That's an interesting statement. And right now, we have to assume that he really is a cowboy because he's telling us, I'm a cowboy. But then he says, on a steel horse I ride. And that's kind of confusing because how can you ride a steel horse? What is it? A steel horse? Is that like a statue of a horse? Not a real horse, obviously, if it's made of steel. How can you ride a steel horse? So he's telling us he's a cowboy, but then the very next line is somewhat confusing and starts to make us question what's actually happening here. And he says he's wanted, dead or alive. Well, that makes sense as a cowboy, outlaw cowboys see their wanted posters in the Wild West. They were wanted, dead or alive. So the law enforcement, the law would put up these wanted posters and, someone had committed a crime and the law didn't really care if they were brought in dead or alive, just as long as they were brought in, right? So that part of the lyric makes sense in relationship to the cowboy statement, but we still have that steel horse bit that just doesn't seem to make any sense. So, we're still kind of just filing things away in the back of our head, like, okay, he's not in a good place. He doesn't really like where he's at. He'd much rather be home. He says he's a cowboy on a steel horse. Not really sure what that means, but he's wanted, dead or alive. And that makes sense in terms of being a cowboy. So, okay. And we get to the next verse. Sometimes I sleep. Sometimes it's not for days. Okay, well, I guess if you're a cowboy on the run, you're having to get as far away as possible, cover as much ground as possible, maybe. The people I meet always go their separate ways. So no one stays in his life for long, right? He meets people, but they all go their separate ways. He never sticks with anybody. Sometimes you tell the day by the bottle that you drink. Okay. Um, Sometimes you tell the day by the bottle that you drink. So you you don't always know what day it is. You can only tell based on the bottle that you're drinking. That means we drink certain things on certain days, like um, you know, whiskey on Mondays, tequila on Tuesdays, vodka on Wednesdays. Like, oh, it's tequila day, it must be Tuesday. Uh, Sometimes you tell the day by the bottle that you drink. So somehow, some way, keeping track of time, keeping track of what day of the week it is dependent in some way on what you're drinking. Sometimes when you're alone, all you do is think. Okay. I'm a cowboy on a steel horse I ride. I'm wanted dead or alive. So we've still got, up until this point, he's told us twice, that he's a cowboy, wanted dead or alive. We're kind of understanding how all these other things could play into that. Doesn't really want to be where he is. He'd rather be back home. Sometimes he sleeps, but sometimes it's not for days. He's constantly on the move. No one ever sticks around. He never forms really lasting relationships. And he drinks a lot. Okay. But then we get to this next verse. I walk these streets, a loaded 6-string on my back. I play for keeps because I might not make it back. Okay, I might not make it back. That would make sense in terms of the cowboy. But what about a loaded 6-string on my back? Cowboys are, we have a 6-shooter, a gun, but what would a 6-string be? So this is another element that's thrown into this cowboy bit that doesn't quite make sense. The steel horse, cowboys ride horses for sure, but a steel horse, what the heck does that mean? Cowboys carry 6 shooters, but what the heck does a 6-string mean? How does that relate? All right, so he's giving us these elements that totally fit with the idea of a cowboy, but then occasionally he's throwing in something else that makes us think, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. What are we supposed to do with that? I've been everywhere. I'm standing tall, still surviving. I've seen a million faces, and I've rocked them all. That is where it should click if it hadn't already. I've seen a million faces, and I've rocked them all. He's a rock star. His 6-string that he carries on his back is his guitar. The steel horse that he rides is either a motorcycle or maybe a tour bus or maybe even an airplane or maybe all three, depending on how far he has to travel. Sometimes he might be able to travel very simply. Sometimes it might require a bus. Sometimes it might require a plane, right? Now we understand that he's actually a musician on tour. But why are those 3 clues mixed in with all of this cowboy talk? He says, I'm a cowboy, but clearly those other clues indicate that he's not really a cowboy. He's actually a musician. So why is he saying he's a cowboy? The reason he's saying he's a cowboy is how he feels up here in this first verse, how he feels here in this second verse, and some of what he says here in the third verse, right? And then, of course, what he says in the chorus. He feels like a cowboy, as a musician on tour. It's all the same, only the names will change. Only the names of the towns change, but it's the same. They perform the same set everywhere they go. Every day it seems we're wasting away, like just the same thing over and over again. Another place where the faces are so cold. All of these people who are there to see him, but none of them are friends or family or people who truly know him and care about him. He'd rather just go back home. He's been doing this for so long that it's no longer fun or exciting. It's kind of sad. Sometimes I sleep, sometimes it's not for days, right? You can imagine that being true for a musician. The people I meet always go their separate ways, right? Again, traveling from town to town. Sometimes you tell the day by the bottle that you drink. Well, now that would definitely make sense as a famous traveling musician, right? Sometimes when you're alone, all you do is think, right? So it's not all it's cracked up to be, this lifestyle. I walk these streets a loaded 6-string on my back guitar. I play for keeps because I might not make it back. I have to go hard every time because, you know, who knows if the next thing I do will be loved and accepted, right? So I'm at the height of fame right now, height of success, but I could turn around and my next album be a complete flop. People are fickle in their preferences. So I play for keeps because I might not make it back. I've been everywhere. I'm standing tall. I've seen a million faces and I've rocked them all. I'm a cowboy. I feel like a cowboy, right? On a steel horse I ride. I'm wanted dead or alive. How, so we kind of understand how everything else could be similar. How a cowboy feels, how this traveling famous musician feels. What about that I'm wanted dead or alive part? A cowboy's wanted dead or alive because they've committed a crime and the law is hoping to capture them. They really don't care if they're brought in dead or alive, just as long as they're brought in and they no longer can be committing crimes. Why would a musician feel wanted dead or alive? I think you have to go based on the feeling, the tone that he is expressing throughout the song, which is that this is not all it's cracked up to be. Everyone is so cold. Everyone goes their separate ways, like drinking all the time. Sometimes I don't even sleep. And when I get out there on stage, all of these people are cheering. They want me to perform, but do they actually know me? Do they actually care about me? It's like I'm wanted dead or alive because they don't really care about me. They don't care if I'm homesick. They don't care if I'm not feeling well. They don't care if I'm feeling depressed. They don't care if I'm sick. They just want me to perform. And it's almost like they don't care if I'm living or dead. So the whole song is a comparison. He is comparing himself to a cowboy, but he doesn't just say, I'm like a cowboy. He says, I am a cowboy. That is a metaphor. A metaphor is when you are making a comparison between two things, and the comparison is so strong, it's like they're the same thing. But he's not just like a cowboy, he is a cowboy. It's an extended metaphor because the comparison goes from start to finish through the whole song. We get I'm a cowboy on a steel horse I ride, I'm wanted dead or alive. So the chorus is the main part where the comparison is fully made. But even everything he says in those first two verses, it's the comparison of the feelings. But we get, I'm a cowboy on a steel horse I ride, I'm wanted dead or alive. That is where the comparison is the strongest, where it becomes most clear, and it goes through the entire song. So it is an extended metaphor from the first word all the way to the last. He is comparing himself to a cowboy through the use of an extended metaphor. We see the cowboy references, and then we have our clues that let us know he's not really a cowboy, right? So the chorus is our big clue that it is a comparison, but then we get steel horse, 6-string, I've rocked them all as our 3 clues that it is a metaphor and that he's not actually a cowboy. But it's an extended metaphor because it goes all the way through. That's pretty cool. It's a great example of poetry in music, right? These very poetic elements being used and then using it from start to finish through an entire song. It's one of the reasons why I choose it. I like finding songs that are very strong examples of poetry being used in song lyrics, and this is a pretty good one. All right, so that's it for this song. You'll complete journal 2 after this. The 2 questions, make sure that you read the questions carefully and answer them thoroughly. And if you have any questions, you can go ahead and tack those on to your journal. Any additional comments that you'd like to send my way, you can tack those onto the journal as well if you want. But just make sure that you do at least fully answer question 1 and question 2 in the journal so that you can get full credit for it. Okay. All right. Guys are free to go ahead and get started on that.